But we can find a way together.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. Today we are talking about Thunderbolts. This is the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know why I sang Thunderbolts at the end there, but I am Dalton Burdett with the amazing Nick Arecchio. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I am feeling thunderific.
That
Was not.
I gotta lie, that was a weaker one.
That was a weak one. That was a weak one. I couldn't. I didn't have a lot of time.
Listen,
We
you
just
can't.
got out of the screening.
Yep, literally. You can't win them all.
Marvelous. How about Marvelous? Is Marvelous a little better?
Marvelous is good. Marvelous is good. You can't win them all, but you certainly can lose them all. Never forget, kids. But getting into the review, we are talking about Thunderbolts. This is the latest film from the MCU, directed by Jake Schreier, written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Calo. And it stars Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, Louis Pullman as Bob, Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, Hannah John-Kamen as Ghost, David Harbour as the Red Guardian, Olga Kurylenko as Taskmaster, and Wyatt Russell as John Walker, aka the U.S. Agent, along with Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. That's a mouthful, but we did it. We got there. And
Well done.
Thank you very much. Let's just kind of dive right into this one, Nicholas. I like this movie a lot. I liked it quite a bit. Not to jump right off the bat with a comparison, because comparisons are the thief of joy, which I say many times. It's definitely better than Captain America: Brave New World.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those movies where it's good right from the get-go, but it gets really good in the third act. I love the third act of this movie, and I don't think everybody will. It's definitely going to rub some people the wrong way. The metaphor it's going for is not going to work for everyone. However, it really resonated with me personally. Especially the motivations of the characters, because in a lot of films like this, by the way, we're not going to spoil anything. With a lot of films like this, particularly in the MCU and superhero films, the motivation for the protagonist is one specific thing, whereas in this third act, the motivation was entirely different, with the effect of that motivation just happening to be positive for people around them. I'm being very vague, but when you see the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I thought that everything they do with the character of Bob and Sentry, the Void, in this film was very well done. You see a lot of that in the trailer, even though they are being coy in the press tour and everything. I thought that storyline was handled really well. I thought Florence Pugh and David Harbour were the big standouts of the movie. I thought everyone did a good job, but they were the big particular standouts. I also think that the pacing of the movie was really well done. It's at just about 2 hours and 6 minutes, and honestly, the movie could have been longer if it wanted to for me. I was having a really great time watching it, but in terms of what we got, the movie flowed effectively. It went right along, and the movie does have a deeper theme to it of depression and mental illness, particularly with the Florence Pugh character, but with all of these characters. And I know that when the film was being made, there were a lot of early comparisons to like a Suicide Squad type movie of taking like the anti-heroes or quote-unquote villains and kind of putting them into a ragtag team and being like, ugh, we're the bad guys, we're the ones that not everybody loves. And while the first act of this movie has an element of that would have gotten annoying had they continued it, where they took it in the story and where it ended up actually was quite endearing and worked really, really well, particularly through the performance of Florence Pugh. And I think that having these characters kind of share that thing of we've all done things we're not proud of and we have to try to just avoid that emptiness that's inside of us, and how that plays into the third act of the movie, I thought was exceptional. And
because it wasn't about them being villains like Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing was like they're kind of the throwaways. They're the misunderstood castaways, if you will. So I think that is really kind of that distinction between the two.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you would think for a movie that I just tweeted as we came out that this is the most emo MCU movie to date, which is complimentary, and that is true. But you would think with the dark themes that it explores and everything, that it would have a hard time balancing its humor, and it doesn't. I think the way the humor in this movie works really well, and it flows from humor to being a little bit dark and serious very well. It doesn't get too dark or anything like that. Like, it's not like Daredevil Born Again dark, like, kids and families can enjoy the movie. But
Hmm.
in terms of the subject matter that it's dealing with, it does get very serious. And the way that it flows tonally worked really well. And a lesser filmmaker and lesser actors could have made that not work. And, just with the talent they had, they were able to pull that off. So I've kind of rambled and done my bit about the movie. Before we kind of discuss it more, Nick, I'm going to throw it over to you. What were your thoughts on Thunderbolts Asterix?
Yeah, no, it was, I really enjoyed it. It felt fresh. I think it's a movie that you kind of touched upon, has these sort of themes of depression and mental illness, right? But it is a Marvel movie, so it's not, it's kind of it's very surface level at times, but I think it does a great job of making that impactful for the characters and the audience and getting into their psyche, even just kind of keeping it at that high level. And the same thing with just all the characters, right? Talking about what I said before, them all being sort of castaways and taught to the side. I would say that Florence Pugh, this is Florence Pugh's movie. Everyone else is sort of just also there and feature predominantly, but that through line, that heart of the movie is really centered around her. But it was great to see characters like John Walker again. I really loved
Mm-hmm.
him on Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was great to see Ghost again. Loved her and Ant Man and the Wasp. Past Master was also there. Fun to see her again. But that real sort of anchoring and that being paired with Red Guardian, especially because he's playing off of Yelena's storyline in such a way. But Julia Louis-Dreyfus is such a great foil to all of these characters,
Yes, yes, yes,
as we've
yes.
seen that sort of through line throughout a bunch of the shows and of them all sort of being in it. And I thought that, halfway through the movie, I really had to use the bathroom, and it would cut from the great group dynamics of the Thunderbolts, asterisk, and then cut back to Allegra de Fontaine's storyline. But Julie Dreyfus is such a powerhouse that I was just like, I don't want to miss any of this either,
Yeah, yeah.
But I was really happy with the way they did Sentry. I thought Louis Pullman did a great job. I know originally it was supposed to be Stephen Young,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought Louis Pullman came in, made that role his own. I thought he was a great addition to the roster, and I think the humor worked very well in it. It's a Marvel movie, not in a bad way or a good way. It does hit that superhero formula, but it does it in such a way that does feel fresh and does feel new. You're gonna have the quips, the music cues, and the big third act, but I think it did it in a way that did feel like we had a fresh filmmaker working on this, like it had a singular vision, like it had an identity. And while again, the humor doesn't always work, the humor works very well at, it's sort of when it hits, and when it misses, it's still kind of funny.
Yeah, and how I would kind of describe this movie, because you were talking about kind of the Marvel formula with it. As a coffee addict myself, what this movie felt like, especially with kind of like some of the early first looks and kind of being unsure about the movie, is it's when you order your coffee that you're used to getting all the time, but they put it down and it looks different. And you're like, I can just tell from like how this coffee looks that this probably is not going to taste the way I want it to. And you kind of look at the barista and you go, "Hey, is this what I wanted? Is this what I ordered?" And they go, "Oh yeah, trust me." And then you drink it and you're like, "Oh shit, this is what I ordered. This is fucking good." Like that's kind of exactly how I feel about the movie, in a way of like, when it starts and you're kind of looking at it, especially from a distance, you're like, I don't know. I don't know if this is what I want. But then once you watch it and get through it, even with its formula, you're like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I want, and they're doing it really well. And
It's sort of like leaving Captain America: Brave New World. Like honestly, I left Captain America: Brave New World, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I expected this to be.
mhm.
For better or for worse, I would say for worse, but I was like, yeah, this is the train wreck half together reshoot. This is what I was anticipating. And this one I didn't have any really expectations from that, and I think it played into that very well.
Yeah,
Like I
and
wasn't expecting a giant CGI slop fest. I thought it looked grounded and had a great dynamic going on with the teams and the characters, and it delivered on that fully for me.
yeah, and there were a couple sequences in particular that had really great practical stunt work.
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
there's an action chase scene that looked like pretty much all practical stunt work. It was really well done.
I thought the
Um,
fight choreography on a whole. I mean,
yes.
we're not talking Shang Chi levels of quality here, but I was thoroughly entertained. I thought that the choreography was all very well done. Playing, you have a bunch of characters. Yeah, they punch and shoot
Hmm.
as they joke in the trailer and stuff, but like U.S. Agent, right? He's a lot more brute force. Captain
Hmm.
America with the shield. Ghost can actually phase, and Yelena's a Black Widow. And I think that how they all just punch and shoot, I thought was portrayed very well.
Yeah, they all fight differently, but it was all shown clearly. And when they would fight with each other and interact with each other, it didn't compromise one fighting style for the other, and it was all photographed and choreographed in a way that it was clear and concise, and it was visceral and fun. Like, it didn't feel like it was just there to be there. It felt like part of the story as well. No,
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly.
I really like the action in the movie. The humor standouts easily David Harbour. I mean, just
I mean, even
every.
from Black Widow, he was always really
Mhm.
funny. I thought John Walker had some great timing. He's not. I wouldn't say he was making the quippy jokes and stuff like that,
No,
but like
but
his deliveries of just like, "Oh, hey, fuck you."
yeah,
He doesn't say fuck, but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but like the timing on those I thought worked really well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And I think just the overall chemistry within the group was really well done. Like,
Yeah.
some people may
I would not
scratch
have thought put these groups together, Like I wouldn't have
exactly.
think bring these characters together. How would John Walker and Red Guardian interact? Like,
Yeah,
what the hell?
exactly. But it was the right choice. It was the right choice. It did
Yeah.
work. And I think the movie has a lot of heart, and I think that's the biggest thing it has going for it is the kind of the beating heart at the center of the movie, which is most utilized in the third act. Like, hell, there's a scene with Florence Pugh and David Harbour in the movie that almost got me like emotional watching it. Like, they were both acting
Yeah,
their asses off.
I thought that hit very well. That landed really well for me. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, and it did excellent. And again, I want to emphasize there are going to be people who dislike the third act of this movie because of what they do, but for me, it's exactly why it was the right choice. And I can't get into it. I can't spoil what they do. But for me, and how I was kind of taking on the journey of the movie, I was like, wow, that was a very interesting left field choice that worked for me. And, I hope
Well,
it
it
can
was
work for,
also
for everyone.
a bit realistic too, without getting into
Oh
spoilers.
yeah, yeah, for sure,
Like,
for sure.
yeah, that's
But
but
but it
oh yeah,
wasn't the thing that was quote unquote what you said, like, you know, not unrealistic, like the realistic part of it. It was the motivation for that. Like, it
yeah.
wasn't, hey, we can't do X, so let's do Y. It was basic, and that's it. I think I can do it without spoiling it. Basically, it's we know exactly what a certain person is going through, so we're the only ones that can help them. And that was kind of the crux of the third act of the movie, and I think that's why it really worked.
Well, it just goes to show when the character when the story is character driven like that, you can take it to those lengths. Like, look at why Guardians 3 works, right? Rocket's in
Mm-hmm.
danger, and it gets tied into the greater thing. That core motivation of
Mm-hmm.
saving Rocket drives the story forward, so you feel more invested in it because it's more character driven, not, oh, there's an evil guy that wants to take over the world. Like Loki wants to destroy New York.
Yeah, yeah, no,
And that's a trend with the Marvel things even too, right? Like, look at Vulture, right? His motivation was much more like, oh, he was looked over by the rich guy. So
mm-hmm.
I think when you have those character motivations, it just helps the story to be character driven.
No, 100%, 100%. But yeah, guys, overall, I really, really enjoyed the movie. It's one of the better Marvel movies we've seen in the past few years. It has some flaws. It's not perfect,
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely.
but it.
Step in the right direction.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And the a lot of the flaws the movie had, you can tell were just made for choices to be safe in a area that felt like new and uncomfortable to the production team and to just the overall Marvel Disney team. So they played some safe choices, which you can see in the movie of like, oh, I see what they're doing here. But overall, I thought it really, really worked. I'd like to see what Jake Schreier does next. I believe they did Beef for Netflix, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard it's a really great miniseries.
Hmm.
I One thing that annoys me in the movie, and this is the last thing. One thing that annoys me in the movie, and I
I have one
completely
more thing after this.
okay, and I completely understand why they do it. It's one of those things where Marvel knows that most of this audience has not watched the television series where a lot of these characters come from. So in the first act, there are dialogue moments where they try to play it off as if it's not exposition, but they very clearly just say like, "Oh, well, here's me and my backstory," and it's like, okay, like don't get me wrong, I get it, I get it. I just think there was a better way to do it, and had Marvel not been in the situation it's in now, where it's been a rocky relationship with the audience. Like, if we were in peak like phase 3 of the MCU and there were TV shows, they just would have assumed like, oh, you've seen it. I don't need to do this dialogue.
Yeah.
And now they're in a position where they have to. So like I get it, but it just still rubbed me the wrong way. And it's a small thing, but anyway.
Well, like no,
what were
but
you
I
gonna
mean,
say?
well, at least it was like, like with Brave New World, it was like, here's a recap of Captain America or a Hulk, and Thaddeus
Mhm,
Ross is like, my daughter, Betsy Ross,
mhm.
whatever, like and all that stuff. Like this one was at least like I feel like it worked a little bit better because they were kind of playing in because it was like they were kind of doing it with each other
Yeah.
as digs, but like the digs are just so hyper specific that I
Hyper
think that's
specific to
where.
the information that you need to know as an audience.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't think that comes off as a dig. Like that it is just
Yeah.
expository, but you're playing it like a dig.
Yeah.
So, but no, there are two post-credit scenes. There's a mid-credit
Oh,
and a
yes.
post-credit scene. Make sure you stay around for the post-credit scene
For
because
sure.
it's quite good.
For sure.
And
The
and that
movie
is all
does
I
have
will
a
say.
really, really great post credit scene. All the way at the end. The mid credit one's fun. The post credit scene
Yeah,
is
that's
is
the fun one,
yeah.
but
The post credit scene's pretty fantastic. I second you. It's one of the better ones, and a really we say like, oh, this is a good Marvel movie for a while. The post credit scene is one of the best ones they've done. It's really good.
yeah, because a lot of times they turned into jokes or just weird things that like a
Hmm.
lot of them had been characters we just know we're never gonna see again.
Yeah.
Like with
Yeah.
Leia and with Harry Styles and stuff,
Hmm.
Hercules. It's
Hercules.
like
Yeah.
we stuck around for this. I'm not. This one actually felt like tangible and building to something,
Yes. For sure.
which I thought was fun.
I agree. I agree. But guys, what do you think? Once you've seen Thunderbolts, please, we'd love to see your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.